All right, hey everyone, this is Ash. Welcome back to the King's Speech. So, after an unexpected 2 week hiatus from Oda, as I'm sure everyone's heard the news, but just to quickly recap in case anyone missed it, Oda was apparently sick for a little while. News has already come out, he's already feeling better. He's back to normal and everything, so nothing to worry about, nothing serious. But we did have an unforeseen break. 992 was supposed to come out 2 weeks ago, but Oda got sick, so they decided to give him some time off to rest and recover. So hopefully he's doing well. Hopefully he isn't pushing himself too hard. With that said, let's dive into One Piece chapter 992. Came out yesterday. My original plan was to do the reaction yesterday. Unfortunately, I got slammed with some unforeseen car repairs and other stuff that kind of occupied all my time, so I didn't get a chance to do it. But better late than never. Let's see if this chapter has lived up to the hype I've skimmed through on Twitter, as we have One Piece chapter 992 Remnants. Now we have another colorful cover page with the Straw Hats eating and drinking and partying and making merry on the sea train, with a bunch of Kumamons, the black bears, and the rainbows in the background. Looks very pretty, looks very nice. Can't really say much more about it. Doesn't really appeal to me that much. Like, it's nice, but it's not like a favorite of mine. But yeah, whatever, it's cool. So we have translation by Stephen Paul, lettering by Vanessa Satone. So the outside of Onigashima, we see, got that Sparrow? The alliance with Kaido was my idea. As you see Big Mom has finally stopped rolling, come to a stop, apparently with Marco and Perospero. And he goes, I'm sure it was, Mama, but remember, we've all been dreaming of the day you become king of the pirates, Perrine. And she's like, of course I know that. Don't you kids trust me? And you see Perospero's kind of taken aback by how adamant she's being, as he goes, oh, well, that's a relief. I can't remember if Perospero saw her as Olin or if he's just being normal self. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe he thought he could manipulate her or something. Who knows? And Marco goes, I see. In that case, despite your invitation to work together, it would seem our mutual goal of vanquishing the ogre Kaido is no more, Perospero. And you see Marco just doing his best impression of a master strategist. As Big Mom goes, oh, Marco, I thought you were better than this. Helping out these whippersnappers? So sad how Whitebeard's remnants have lost their way. And he goes, you're sure you're not mistaking the meaning of the word remnants, Big Mom? And she's like, what? He goes, do you think that Pops' voice is still binding us to his will? Everyone who's left is free. I'll talk about that at the end. It's just a funny thought struck me. He said, that's right. Dead men give no orders. Do as you will. Back to the piratey talk. You see Wanda going, Carrot, where are you going? And she goes, to avenge Pedro. I know who I saw. Well, it looks like Carrot fans are getting their dream matchup. Because you have Straw Hat, go onward. Luffy's like, thanks, as he runs away again to try to get to the roof to find Kaido. And you see Banquet Hall inside the castle. The whole island is in an uproar. Do you think they'll come up here? There's no one in the tatami room with us. Can you imagine? Will you play a song for us, Miss Maria? And you see her just tuning a shamisen as she goes, of course. How about this one? And you have a papang as she strums and goes, on a snowy night, two who wish to be united but could never be together. And you see her, wait up! As Yamato's still chasing a frightened Shinobu and Momo who looks like he's completely knocked out. And Black Mirror continues, at last we'll meet beneath the light of the moon. And you have more papangs as she's strumming the shamisen. Oh, so romantic! It's like their passions run high. You see bang, 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 as she starts strumming the shamisen some more. He's like, eek, she's so cool! On the roof, you see a panel of the Scabbers all rushing towards Kaido, who's going into his dragon form low along the ground as he charges them. And you see him going with a guarg as he shoots out a roar. And you see the ground cracking beneath their feet as they leap. and they all pounce toward his head. And as they do, you see Kaido looking up, and he lets out another roar. Ooh, and you see rumble, rumble, rumble as Ryza goes, his roaring. His roaring turns to lightning. You see them all readying their swords. And you see Cat Viper kind of doing the little tail copter as he does a little spin, goes in between, and he does a wow, crimson cat dance as he uppercuts Kaido with his paw and sends his head flying. And then he leaps up to the top again. Oh, that's not in this Kawamatsu. Hang on, let me zoom in here. See Kawamatsu zooming up to the moonlight. I like this little panel of how he's getting silhouetted against the moonlight. And he draws his blade and he does Kappa style, River of Sea. And he does like these circles around Kaido's head. And you see Kaido's spurting out a little blood from his mouth. And all of the, was it pleasures are going, huh? Their attacks are hurting Kaido? And you see Kaido glaring to the side as his claw coming in and smashing Kawamatsu to the side. And you see Dogstorm in his Sulong form going Canine Scourge as he jumps up and just impales his peg-like sword into Kaido's throat. And you see Fallen Snow Sides slicing rounds as Kiku sends flying slash attack at Kaido at the same time as Izo's just letting loose with the guns and blasting him with the boom, 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 boom. And you see Kaido going, enough nonsense. None of these attacks bear a resemblance to Oden's blades. So why can they cut me? And you see him opening his mouth again as he gets ready to do his Boro blast breath. And as he does, you see Ryza going, Ninpo Scrolling Jutsu. And he opens up a scroll. I'm sorry, there's no reason this music is just so ridiculous. And you see him just pulling out this giant scroll and absorbing Kaido's blast breath, and Kaido's just looking in shock as the scroll rolls up, and he goes, my scrolls can wrap around anything in existence, and he catches it with a flap. And he opens it up again, swirls it around Kaido, and he's like, It's like, now I return it to you. Blast breath restoration. And as you call it, just getting a huge shock as he's hit by his own attack by the scroll that Ryza wrapped around him. You see this giant flaming explosion on the top of Onigashima. You have Master Kaido. What's happening? How can he be taking so much damage? And you see Kaido just like grr as they're facing off once again. And you see as Kinemon's readying his blade. Is that Kinemon's blade? That's a black blade? Oh, okay, so it looks like all the scabbards have managed to make their blades black. As we get to the next part, I'm jumping ahead a little bit. And you see him flashing back to Oden, who's saying, come on, I'll teach you. It's like, no, thank you. We have our own styles of fighting. He's like, but Oden too swords. Oh my god. Oden two sword style's the greatest there is. Why won't they learn it? You see him sitting down like a grumpy little kid as Toki's like, hey, because they would have fought a great big fight over who would be your foremost disciple. They love you so much they would have killed each other. I get so much hate for laughing at this. And you see Kaido going, what do you think you're doing? As you see Oshura Doji, Kinemon, Denjiro, and Dogstorm all holding the blades in a two-handed style as they're facing off against him. And they're saying, Oden, two-sword style. And I know what I want to be like, oh, this is so epic, oh my god. Like, I just cannot stop laughing at how ridiculous this looks. I'll get to that at the end. And Kaido just opens his mouth to do another blast. He goes, you waste your time with this cheap imitation. And you see Oden trying to convince the Scabbers to learn his sword style. He's like, okay, first of all, here's the thing about Rio. He's like, listen to me. As all the Scabbers just turn their back on him. And you see all of them with determined faces leaping towards him as they all land a slash attack right on the X where Oden caught him first. And you see they're ripping the old wound apart with a spurt of blood as you have Paradise Totsuka. And Heido's eyes go white as it looks like he's getting knocked out. Next chapter hits October 25th. Boy, all right. Let's get into thoughts. That was a shorter chapter than I imagined, but let's get into thoughts. Yeah, as always, I'll go from the start and kind of just go through each page with my thoughts. I still don't know why Oda because this was something I was kind of talking with my little brother about. I was talking about this with my little brother last week because I was trying to figure out, what Oda's intentions were, like plans were for bringing Big Mom to Wano and how that kind of fits in with his 5-year timeline. And the only reason I can think of why he's bought Big Mom here, but continually keeps sidelining her, is because I know a lot of people are convinced that Big Mom is going down on Wano along with Kaido. I'm 99.9% sure that's not going to happen. I still maintain Big Mom is going to go to Elbaf, close out her storyline there, and she will end up turning into an ally. But the way I speculated on was Oda might have just bought her here to Wano to make it easier for him to then have her chase the Straw Hats to Elbaf, rather than trying to, come up with a plotline or storyline for why, she's now chasing them, how she knows they're going to Elbaf, and things like that. But it doesn't make it any less worse when, he's kind of sidelining Big Mom with these pointless kind of errands and things. Like, I didn't really buy the whole, like, oh, the Marco's like, oh, I'm allying with Sparrow because we both want to take down Kaido. That felt a little bit too clean, especially given that the Emperors are supposed to be rivals. It always felt a little bit, like, off to me. It felt like Oda was pushing this as a thing he wanted to do. It didn't feel like it came out of, like, natural character interactions or motivations. So now it just being like, oh, the alliance is over because Big Mom's like, I'm not going to betray Kaido. It's like, all right, yeah. But the fact that Oda is pushing this so much with, the whole, oh, pirate alliances are full of betrayal. You'll learn that eventually someone's going to betray you. I feel like that's why he's repeatedly doing this. And it feels like I still may think that Sparrow is going to be the one to do something because he doesn't look happy, seeing the Big Mom's apparently, what's the word I'm looking for? He basically doesn't like the Big Mom's, like, has her own agendas trying to. God, why is my brain going dead? Which I think everyone knows what I'm talking about. It's like Big Mom is maintaining her own independence. I don't think Sparrow likes that. I think he likes this better when he's able to kind of gently nudge or manipulate her. But the fact she's being so adamant about the fact she wants to maintain the alliance with Kaido, I don't think that makes Sparrow happy. So I think if any kind of betrayal is going to come out from this side, I think Sparrow is going to try to do something, especially given on Whole Cake Island, how he was the one trying to, like, manipulate Big Mom attacking the Straw Hats by telling them, oh, they have the cake, you have to go after them, that stuff like that. So I feel like he's going to try to throw some kind of wrench into the plans to try to manipulate Big Mom to thinking Kaido's betrayed her. The first thought that struck me was like, all right, is he going to try to convince her that Carrot is part of the Beast Pirates, and that somehow Kaido somehow sent her to assassinate him is part of his plan, and being like, oh, Kaido's actually backstabbing you and he's going to ally with Straw Hat Luffy and he's trying to take us out. I could see something like that going. The Yamato stuff, again, I just really want an answer with what the hell is he doing with Yamato, like what the storyline is going to be. He's like, yeah, it's amusing that he's still chasing Momo and Shinobu, but, like, I really hope that comes to an end some point soon. And now I think that brings us to my somewhat controversial thoughts on this chapter. And I know a lot of people are going to be like, as soon as I say this next part, are going to be like, oh, this is complete bullshit. Don't bother listening to him. But I'm still kind of miffed that Oda really didn't go full hog with the whole Kabuki theme for Wano. Because I feel like the setup for that was so perfect. And I talked about this a lot at the very beginning, with the whole Orochi being paranoid about ghosts, combined with the time travel, combined with, the shamisen and Black Maria playing it right now and stuff like that. The way Oda's doing it, it's like, yeah, he's got the trappings, of Kabuki plays by splitting up the story into acts, having the shamisen play, kind of making reference to, like, current events that are going on. But I wish Oda had gone full tilt into that and actually done a Kabuki play in Wano. Because this is one of the theories and like ideas that tossed out was like, the way the scabbards would infiltrate Onigashima is by pretending to be performers, putting on a Kabuki play about Oden's, demise and everything else, which I think would have poetically and thematically fit really well into Wano. So when Oda does these things like, oh, Black Maria's playing, the shamisen, kind of alluding to the Scabbards and Kaido's meeting and like the time that passed between everything, it's like, yeah, that's nice and cool and all that, but it really just feels like an accoutrement. It doesn't feel. I guess what I'm trying to say is like I feel like he could have integrated it better rather than just as window dressing for this arc of being like, oh yeah, it's gonna be so cool. Because I know a lot of anime people are saying, yeah, the anime, whereas in the anime, like, they would play the shamisen, it'll be sound really cool, it'll work really well. Like, yeah, but given that the original medium is a manga, I wish he'd done more to incorporate it in that regard. Mystic commented, Big Mom could be such a great character, but goddamn, Oda can't write a woman to save his life anymore. Yeah, honestly, like, this is the thing, right? Like, there's Big Mom's aesthetic, like, there's some problematic elements to it, but there's also a lot of things that I love. Where if Oda just put in, like, a little bit more effort, just tweaked a few things, he could have completely flipped the script on, how she was written and portrayed rather than just making her into this joke. Like the best way I describe it is like it's akin to Melissa McCarthy, where she does kind of that physical humor that kind of plays on her fatness for laughs, which is the same thing I feel like Oda does with Big Mom, where he's like, oh look, she's a fat woman, so that obviously means I have to make fun of her. Can't make her as serious or as badass as the other emperors, and it just feels like such a waste of effort for given her powers and given how few female villains we get in the series and just how many women we have in general in the entire cast. So it always sucks seeing that, being like, yeah, you don't want to put all your hopes on this one character to be like, I want her representation, to be perfect, whatever. But like Oda could try just a little bit harder. But back to the panel stuff. Yeah, there was some epic artwork in the panels. Like I like what Oda's trying to do again, but it also felt extremely, extremely like messy and too compact for what it was. Like there was too much going on. Like there's too much action in each panel for me to like clearly tell what was going on. And if that was supposed to be like a deliberate element of like, oh, this fight is supposed to be messy, it's supposed to look like that, maybe I'd buy it, but I don't get that feeling. I think this is another kind of example of like Oda's shift in artwork, like the way he styles his panels post times where he cramps too much into too little and just comes off looking clustered rather than pretty. But other than that, it was nice kind of seeing all the scabbards, I guess, land hits on Kaido and everything. But I'll talk about that at the end. Because I talked about this last week as well, where I kind of talked about power scaling and all that. So I won't dig into that too much here. But I still kind of maintain that the biggest problem, like even with Oda trying to, almost fourth wall acknowledged with Kaido going, "Oh, how come these attacks can hurt me when they're not as strong as Oden?" Blah blah blah. And the reveal will be like, "Oh, they're like inhabiting Oden's will, or whatever. Their anger is giving them more power, or whatever crap it turns out to be." I think the biggest problem is still that there is no frame of reference for us to be able to tell or justify that yes, these scabbards are supposed to be this strong and their strength is believable, against Kaido, because we've seen so little of their fighting prowess that there's nothing really to benchmark it against. And I know a lot of fans try to justify it with, well, oh, no one ever said Kaido was undefeatable. He'd been captured in the past by his enemies a lot of times, so that doesn't mean he's invincible and he can't be harmed. And oh, everyone is saying how strong the samurai of Wano are, etc., etc. It's like, yeah, Oda did a lot of telling with how strong these characters are supposed to be and how powerful they're supposed to be. But we never had really anything to compare it against. So people kind of just toss out these terms of like, oh, these guys are commander level, they're admiral level, they're emperor level. And we don't really have a uniform way of kind of talking about how the strength of these various characters would fit into these arbitrary kind of rankings and rankings and statuses that they have. So I think that's the biggest problem with that specifically, where it's like, all right, I don't really mind that the scabbards are able to hurt Kaido, but it does seem like Oda's making up a little bit, where it's like, up to this point, like 20 years ago, they were barely able to scratch him or do any damage. And Oden, who was specifically made to, Oden was specifically written to be like, oh, this guy is an exceptional warrior, even among all these other ones. He was able to hurt Kaido because he was just born monstrous. I think that's the problem with this. Like, all right, half of them skipped forward 20 years, during which time they never really trained to use their powers or get stronger, gain more experience, and are now suddenly able to somehow hurt Kaido. Who, if I'm not remembering wrong, like Oda had mentioned that Kaido was going to get strong, or he expects Kaido to get stronger in the 20 years, before Wano's borders are going to get open and all that. So for Kaido to be having so much trouble just kind of rubs me off the wrong way. But with all that said, even with all the blows and stuff that are landing, as people have pointed out, we haven't seen Kaido's hybrid form yet, which is speculated to be the strongest one. So there's some reason Oda's holding back on it. They still don't know if he's awakened or not, which I suspect he is, and he hasn't gone into that form yet. So there's obviously going to be a reversal at some point where the scabbards will think, yeah, revenge is completed. Oh, we got, Kaido's finally down. We got our revenge. And then there'll be the flip where everything starts to go bad. But the build up to that is just so lackluster. I don't know what else to really say about it. And I think that brings me to the other thing, which is something, again, I've been kind of harping on consistently for a while now on all my videos, but it really does show here like how much it's hurting the series, which is Oda keeps kind of going back to that well of trying to, use the Oden flashback and the Scabbard's relationship to him to try and make you emotionally invested in these fights. And the biggest problem with this, like the reason I don't really feel anything, even though the fight is epic, is I'm not really emotionally invested in the Scabbards or their struggle or their reasons for taking down Kaido, because Oda rushed so much of what he did with their backstory and he just kind of skimmed through the relationship and just did more telling of, yeah, they love Oden, Oden's so great, they love him, rather than showing why they do, which is one part of it. And I think the other part is like we don't really also have an emotional investment in Wano or the citizens' struggles therein as well, which is kind of the other element that's missing. So the other part of the fight with Kaido's like, all right, he's going to destroy Wano, he's going to make the slave labor camps and everything like that. It's like, yeah, it all has all the trappings of like, yeah, you're supposed to despise this guy because he's doing these horrific things, etc. Because we don't have any emotional connections to any of the characters on Wano, the Straw Hats themselves haven't really shown any particular attachment to any of the citizens or the struggles of their needs or anything like that. That also makes it hard for me to be invested in the Scabbards taking down Kaido because it's like, all right, why am I supposed to care if he goes down or not if I don't care about the people or the places that he's taken over and he's exploiting? If I don't care about them, a lot of this stuff doesn't work. So I'm kind of hoping we'll get to a point eventually where Oda does do a better job of building on that a little bit more. But right now I'll have to see. But yeah, that's the reason why I laughed so hard at the Oden Two Sword style. Is because if Oda had just put in like a smidgen more effort and spent like 2 to 3 more chapters just fleshing out the flashback and Oden's relationship with the Scabbards, it would have paid off exponentially more now when he keeps kind of going back to the well to try to build up that emotional connection. It would have paid off so much more and made me so much more invested. But instead, because I don't care about them, just like them doing the Oda and Two Sword style, just comes off feeling so flat and like there's just a dissonance between what I'm supposed to feel and what Oda wants me to feel. I think that's the best way I can describe. So I'm really hoping that when the eventual turnaround does come, that we'll get some kind of stake in this. But until then, I really don't know. But yeah, I think that's all the thoughts I have to cover for this short chapter. Apparently, there's no break next week, so we'll see if anything else goes on. Gemma, was Oda's writing of women really that bad? Yes, it's vomit-inducing bad. That is true. Like, I know a lot of people try to justify it with, well, it's been worse post time skip. I think I can safely say without too much criticism. And even when people try to justify with like, oh well, Nami got a hit on Big Mom, it's like, oh, they're doing this stuff. When you compare how he used to write them to how he writes them now, it's clear that he's kind of relegated them to the role of just being eye candy. Where yeah, they'll have their moments occasionally will be like, oh, they'll do something that reminds you of why they used to be well written, why you used to love them. But post time skip, like he's just that the women really are just window dressing and it's gotten really, really bad. And Mystic commented, wish I could show Oda the article Greg Rucka wrote where he said the most important thing you can do is also the simplest, talk to women. Yes, please. Oda needs to talk to women. Like, I want two minds of this because Oda's comments, like sexist comments, and his editor's sexist comments make me super uncomfortable with, wishing that any women would be around him or working with him as editors or whatever, trying to give him feedback. Because I feel like that would put them in just a super unsafe environment. And I wouldn't want to do that to them. On the other hand, it's like, it's very clear that Oda really does need to talk to women and find out how to write them better. But I don't know, like at this point, his sexist comments and like the SBS is about how he's going to draw sexy women, despite the fact that women who read his series complain to him about it, and the fact that he has 2 daughters and he's still like being like, oh, my daughter said it was okay that I draw women with giant boobies, so I'm just going to keep doing that. Stuff like that makes me think even if you sat him down at like a round table full of women who all told him how he should fix his craft, what harm it's doing and why it's harmful. I don't know if you could actually really get him to listen, but yeah, I don't know. It's kind of one of those things where it's frustrating talking about it. I just wish people didn't give him the benefit of the doubt so much and try to justify a lot of his sexism. Mystic said, hiring female sensitivity readers when you're a man is a must. Yeah, I totally agree. I wish Shonen Jump would do it because they desperately need it, but I think they need to fundamentally change what their culture is like before kind of putting women into that kind of position. I don't know if that'll ever happen, but honestly, fingers crossed. I hope they start making, like baby steps towards that. We'll have to wait and see. That said, hope you all enjoyed this video. I'm also curious if anyone else feels the same way as I do with regarding, the Scabbards and Kaido and just kind of emotional investment in Wano, or whether that's something whether I'm the only outlier, because I know a vast majority of the fans I follow on Twitter and everyone everywhere else really seem to love Wano and really seem to be invested in this story. I'm not so much, so I'm wondering if I'm just the outlier on this. But who knows? You all feel free to please comment or let me know if you feel one way or the other. If you do feel like Oda's doing a good job, I'd also love to hear how or why, things like that. As always, if you like my content, please do like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. I really appreciate everyone that dropped in to today's stream. And until next time, this is Ash. I'll talk to you all later.